All right, everybody, we're going to go ahead and start a couple of minutes early here because I know a lot of you are super excited about these range of motherboards. So today is the launch day, B550. It's finally here, and I know for a lot of you, you've been super excited about these motherboards launching. And of course, over here at ASUS, we've been super excited about these boards as well. They've been a lot of time and effort been put into the design and development of these boards. So I'm super excited to be able to go ahead and run through, the lineup across the board from our Prime series to our TUF Gaming series to our ROG STRIX series of motherboards, give you guys some insights in terms of course, the features, the functions, and the designs, as well as some really cool things that we've done, I think, to just kind of take the boards to the next level and definitely offer some improvements compared to not only the previous generation B450, but also I think to some of the even entry X570 series motherboards. So for a lot of you out there that are looking to build a system when it comes to the latest generation of Ryzen 3000 series processors, I think you're going to have a great series of boards here to pick through. So first and foremost, for you guys that are joining the stream, thank you guys so much taking time out of your day. I really appreciate that. Make sure to go ahead and drop us some comments down in the chat. I'll do my best to go ahead and check it out when I can, see if we can answer some of your guys' questions. Beyond that, of course, if you guys want any more additional information, we're going to be talking about a lot of different places where we've got a lot of information to really help to give you the most insight into picking the right board for you. So whether that's going to be content up on our EdgeUp website, so edgeup.asus.com, where we've got not only a full breakdown on this series of motherboards, but as well as full actually PC build configuration guides, to of course our new PC DIY Facebook group where you can ask for recommendations, get insights, previews, performance tips, and so much more, as well as of course all our social media channels where we've got all kinds of content. One way or another, we're going to have you covered when it comes to finding out all the information you need for your ASUS series motherboards. So first, let's go ahead and just talk about a couple of things. We will actually be doing some giveaways, so make sure to keep tuned throughout this live stream so you can go ahead and get the chance to win some pretty sweet hardware. In terms of the actual giveaways, we've got actually 3 different giveaways going on right now. So if you're on Twitter, if you've gone ahead and liked and retweeted our live stream post, then that will actually enter you into one of our prize giveaways. Our secondary giveaway we're actually going to be doing at the end of this live stream. And then our last giveaway will actually be for people that head over to our PC DIY Facebook group and join us there, and we'll be picking the winner in a couple of days. So in terms of actually what you can expect to get, we've got some pretty nice hardware. So we're actually going to be giving away actually the highest end version of our ROG STRIX series of motherboards with the B550-E gaming. So a really, really nice motherboard, pretty much the highest end board that we're going to be offering on the B550 chipset. It's pretty much going to have all the features that you would really want in a high-end PC DIY gaming build that are going to be present on there. And we're going to be including different pairings of our latest ROG STRIX series peripherals, the Electro Punk series, which go really, really well with the subtle Electropunk ID design that we have actually on this newest generation of B550 series motherboards. So if you guys are definitely interested in that, make sure to check out the respective links in the description so you guys have the opportunity to win some cool hardware. So like I said, 3 different giveaways that we're going to be doing. One on Twitter, another one that's going to be on here at the end of the stream, and then another that we're going to be following up with in our PC DIY Facebook group. So that covers us in terms of some of the giveaways. So, I think right now, there's a lot of questions surrounding B550 and now, of course, where that sits in relation to B450 and then also even X570. And so I think the first thing that we want to do is try to add a little bit of kind of, I think, insight and contrast into what makes sense, right? And so I think the most important thing to first keep in mind is going to be that when we're talking about kind of the position of what B550 makes most sense for is that it's still a mid-range enthusiast chipset. And so what I mean by that is that probably for the vast majority of builders, it's going to be a little bit more cost accessible than you're going to have with the higher end X570 series of motherboards. But at the same time, you're not compromising on a lot of the next generation technologies that are going to be available to you now, afforded by the CPU as well as on the motherboard side. And so the really great thing that you're going to get with these next generation boards are not only next generation technologies that are coming from the CPU and the chipset, but also next generation features and functions that we're going to be putting on the boards. So on AMD's side, of course, that's going to be PCI Express Gen 4. You're going to have high-speed DDR4 memory support. You're going to have USB 3.2. You're going to, of course, have access to those Ryzen 3000 series of processors in terms of that high core count. And then on our end, I think we've taken this opportunity to say, hey, there's some other cool technologies that are available that align with this chipset that we can introduce so that paired along with those great CPU and chipset related features and functions and specifications, we can kind of take it to the next level. And so what you're going to find is on many of the boards that we're going to be talking about, you're going to get next generation networking technologies like 2.5 gigabit LAN, Wi-Fi 6, as well as either some other really cool stuff that we're introducing, like our AI noise canceling technology and our AI networking technology to just help to further improve the overall experience that you have within your builds. So let's go ahead and start to take a little bit of a closer look here on some of the, I think, comparison aspects that you're going to want to keep in mind, right? So let me go ahead and bring up some information here, and so we can see if kind of this makes a little bit more sense for you guys. All right, so when we're taking a look right here, we're going to be overall launching a pretty large number of motherboards for this B550 series chipset launch. So you can see that we actually have 11 motherboards altogether, and we're going to be, when we get into the ROG series, while many of you might be aware of some of the motherboards that we've already essentially showcased and announced, there are a couple of new ones that we're going to be introducing as of today, and that's going to include the brand new B550-A Gaming. And so if you guys have been following what we've done with the recent Intel launch and our -A release, this is actually a silver and white accented ROG motherboard. And so a lot of users out there in the community have been really excited that we're now going to be offering this for the AMD community. It really complements the great white accessory ecosystem that we have for the ROG STRIX lineup. So everything from coolers to power supplies to chassis, to pretty much everything you're looking for to really be able to provide, I think, kind of a comprehensive white aesthetic when it comes to that build. So you have two options now with ROG. You're going to go kind of the traditional monochrome, clean, black stylized aesthetic, or you can also go with that silver white aesthetic. Either one's up to you. We're also going to be introducing today on this stream a brand new variant of the TUF Gaming B550 Plus, where we'll have a Wi-Fi based version. So when you account for all three of those boards across all the series, so Prime series, TUF Gaming series, and the ROG STRIX series, we've got 11 different boards that we're going to be talking about. So as we kind of jump into it, let's go ahead and now take a little bit of a closer look here and see kind of how this stacks up in relation to what you can expect in terms of CPU support. For most of you, you're probably aware from the fact that in terms of the CPU support, B550 along with X570 are really kind of the chipsets that AMD is focusing in terms of maximizing their CPU longevity support. And so here, you're going to get that official support for, of course, all the current crop of Ryzen 3000 series processors, as well as, of course, you're going to have the next generation support for AMD's upcoming CPUs. And so outside of that, for anybody that has any questions regarding, what's going to be done in terms of maybe other boards that have available, the best thing that we recommend is make sure to just keep tuned to our social media channels, where we'll be issuing updates regarding any type of UEFI releases that we may have available. But as of right now, our commitment and our focus is to ensure that you guys have a great experience with the current Ryzen 3000 series processors on the entire range of our B550 series motherboards, as well as, of course, our X570 series of motherboards. And for those of you that are wondering about if B450 is going to be going anywhere, it's not going to be going anywhere. We'll still be offering our B450 series of motherboards, as they're a great choice of boards at a little bit of a lower price point with still very solid features and functions, with that kind of the main differential, at least on the high-end specification side, being that you don't have that PCI Express Gen 4 support. So here, let's take a little bit of a closer look at what you're going to be seeing in terms of kind of the direct kind of specification differential. So in terms of the direct specification differential, you can see here that the main difference is going to be, like as I noted, a PCI Express Gen 4, the chipset. So the chipset is generally what you call that PCH or the FCH portion of the motherboard, usually in this kind of region right here down at the bottom of the motherboard. That's going to be PCI Express Gen 3 as opposed to PCI Express Gen 4. For the vast majority of you, that's not too much of a concern, because the reality is that most users are generally only running one high-end GPU, and they're going to probably run one primary M.2 based SSD. So there's enough lanes to really be able to provide the experience that you're looking for in terms of kind of all the key connectivity. But for users that are really I'd say the most demanding and looking for the highest level of expansion support when it comes to PCI Express Gen 4, that's where definitely X570 still comes into play. And you're also going to find that X570 will not only have more PCI Express Gen 4 lane capabilities, but it'll have more USB ports, right? It'll have, secondary maybe LAN ports on the boards. They'll have more specialized connectors and interfaces for, let's say, like custom water cooling, like on our higher end ROG series of motherboards, more high-end audio designs that are going to be present. So as always, the way that we try to approach motherboard design is that it's a balance not only between what the chipset affords, but also what the positioning of that chipset affords. And so as we move up the product stack, I would say is that generally you're going to be getting boards that are going to be more tailored for, I think, more niche types of users, while B550 sits really well to kind of cover the entirety of all types of users, whether it's, general content creation, advanced productivity, science and simulation, or of course gaming, right? The other, I think, big part to this is going to be that you still have very good overclocking support on this motherboard and on these series of chipsets. So when we, I think, talk about the overall kind of overclocking experience, that's an important aspect to keep in mind. With B450, I think it was readily shown that you could have a very good experience when it came to overclocking, regardless of kind of the CPU. When you were talking about, let's say, like a Ryzen 5, especially like the popular 3600 and DDR4, it was very easy to be able to hit, 4 gigahertz plus, and then also be able to hit 3600 megahertz, even 3733 megahertz in terms of the DDR4. And that's something you're still going to continue to see on these B550 series of boards, but actually the overclocking, I think, will even be better. And the main reason being is that across the board, the power delivery solutions, the overall heatsink assemblies, and the memory topology, along with the firmware optimization, has just been further improved upon to allow you to even have a better OC experience. And we'll be talking a little bit later as we get into some of the really cool things that we've done within the UEFI BIOS, but we also are now introducing, I think, some really cool options to allow for even, I think, a more streamlined experience for users that want to be able to maximize the performance on B550. Some users, as much as we make overclocking easier, I think are always looking for a very simple, easy, and reliable way to get more out of their system. So if they make the investment in an ASUS board, an overclocked, of course, capable processor, which is pretty much all of the Ryzen series chips, and a good quality cooler, how can they do that easily? And so we've got a really couple of cool features that we're introducing. We've got per-core CCX support, which is going to be enabled in the UEFI. Before, this was exclusively only found within the Ryzen Master utility. The reason why that's important is because it gives you more granularity. What we've generally seen within the overclocking range of Ryzen 3000 series processors is that when you attempt to force all the cores to essentially run at one singular frequency, you're going to find that there's a limiting margin between some of these cores and between some of the CCX complexes. Essentially, a certain amount can, let's say, get to one level, and another amount can get to another level. And if you force them all to go to the highest level, you actually may find some can't hit that level. And so you're going to hit a level of instability more quickly than if you went about what was called per core adjustments. And giving you the ability to do per core CCX means essentially that, anywhere between, let's say, 50 to 200 megahertz, which would normally be left on the floor, is now actually going to be available to you. So that means that you can really help to extend that overclocking headroom, especially on the higher core count Ryzen series processors. So when those Ryzen 7 and those Ryzen 9 series processors, where you've got so many more cores and you're going to see more variance in terms of what the peak frequency is, that's a really key advantage that you're going to have. So the per-core CCX, I think, is going to be a really, really nice feature that we're introducing here. Another really cool feature that we're going to be introducing is going to be something that's we've just recently released on Intel series boards, but it's introduced a little bit differently here. But it's essentially our ASUS APE technology, or ASUS Performance Enhancement option. And essentially what we've done is, when we're designing the motherboard and we're evaluating essentially the power delivery, so essentially, your VRM components, so everything from the PWM to the capacitors, to the power stages, to the inductors, as well as the thermal solution, all of that gets accounted for. And so we have a very good understanding of essentially the amount of maximum power envelope that's available to the motherboard, along with the thermal performance that the board can essentially handle. And so essentially what we're doing is helping to maximize that headroom specific to that board in relation to the CPU. And what this essentially will allow for is a much higher level of performance to be reached. So all the user needs to do is essentially just enable this ASUS APE function within the UEFI, and you can help to extend the performance of your part without having to go through any type of more kind of extensive overclocking. You essentially can just unlock more performance from that Ryzen part just by simply enabling that ASUS APE function. So that's pretty cool in terms of what we're doing there. And so this is going to be one of our Prime Series boards. So we'll actually be offering multiple models in terms of the Prime Series lineup. For the Prime Series, we're going to be having 4 different models that'll be available, including an ATX, as well as what you see right here with a micro ATX-based version. One of the cool things I think within the Micro ATX version is that this model will feature a next generation Wi-Fi standard with a Wi-Fi 6 on board. So even if you're going with a smaller form factor board, you're still going to be actually offered that next generation networking standard built onto the motherboard. Now, one of the things that of course is classically different within the Prime series is going to be kind of the stylized aesthetic. These boards are generally kind of traditionally known as our white accented based motherboards because they feature white accents on the PCB and then usually some form of silver complementary accent in terms of the VRM and the heatsink assembly that is present on the motherboards. So here you can see we've got our Prime series board. Looks quite nice. And so there you can see what I was talking about, where you've got those nice white accents that are on the board. You can still see that, of course, you know, as a chipset specification, you're going to have that PCI Express Gen 4 support. Even on an entry-level series board like this, you're going to have dual M.2, so you can comfortably go ahead and run your, your PCI Gen 3 or your PCI Gen 4. Although keep in mind, because you don't have chipset lanes that are going to be providing support for generally your secondary M.2, only one M.2 is going to be PCI Gen 4. But for the vast majority of you, stepping over to a PCI NVMe-based SSD, regardless of which controller it's going to be featuring, is going to be a big performance improvement in terms of overall which you can expect. So you've got your dual M.2. Of course, you've got high-speed DDR support. So, comfortably, for most of you guys, you're going to be probably running, 3600 megahertz memory. Maybe you're going to be going a little bit more aggressive, maybe trying to optimally hit that 1-to-1 ratio of 3733. And this board can comfortably run that, no problems. Now, keep in mind that for all of the motherboards that we're going to be talking about, they do feature our DOCP memory profiling technology. Well, essentially, just what that is that inside of our UEFI BIOS, we have some options that allow you to go ahead and take the timings, the frequency, and the voltage for the memory and automatically have that applied. So right here, of course, your memory is rated for a certain level of operation. So this, take for instance, could be like 3600 megahertz. It has a corresponding voltage. It has a corresponding timing. But what some people forget is that essentially on the majority of modules that are on the market, not these G-Skill modules, because these are optimally designed for AMD, but many of them are validated on Intel-based platforms. And so the frequency, the voltage, and the timings that are defined for those platforms are essentially programmed for Intel's memory controller and Intel's based chipsets. And ASUS was actually the first manufacturer to release a specialized tool built into the UEFI to essentially extrapolate that information and attempt to then automatically apply it to work correctly on an AMD CPU and then an AMD-based chipset. And so we have that feature on all of our motherboards. So if you're going to be running these higher speed DDR4 memory kits, you can definitely do that without any issues. Beyond that, you can also see that we've got a good quality little heatsink right here. And we'll actually show you a couple of really cool things to do here, but you might be able to see it if I angle it. But if you actually take a look, you'll actually see right there that the heatsink itself is making contact with these components right here. So these components right here are referred to as your power components. So this would be your traditional MOSFET and drivers. And then right here, these are your chokes. And the cool thing is that what we've done pretty much with all our boards here on the Prime series, the TUF Gaming series, as well as on the ROG STRIX series, is that these boards feature dual contact design, meaning that this heatsink makes not only contact with these primary power components, but also they make contact with these inductors. So you get 2 points of heat dissipation. And then of course, in terms of your I/O, you've got all kind of the I/O specification there in terms of USB 3.2, your Wi-Fi 6, and then from there, of course, your traditional base connectivity. And on this board also, you can see this little kind of yellow line. That's our isolation audio design. So we were the first manufacturer to actually innovate this first on ROG series motherboards. So this is on our Prime series, a little bit more entry. It's called our Crystal Sound 3.0. This is the 887 based audio codec, still has audio grade capacitors, but it's a nice improvement in terms of your base audio experience, and, good experience you're going to have in terms of music and videos and games. But overall, a very nice kind of option that you're going to have available to you if you're going to be going with a Prime series board. So let's go ahead and take a little bit of closer look back here at some of the kind of cool aspects that we've got here on the Prime series. So we talked about you've got the Wi-Fi 6 on board. These boards also, optionally, some of them will also feature a Thunderbolt 3 header, so that supports our Thunderbolt 3 add-in card. So if you're looking for that, you have that support, no issues. Fan Expert 4, of course, is something that we've continued to offer across multiple generations. And pretty much in short, that just means that we have advanced controls available to you within our UEFI as well as within the operating system. So you can go ahead and pretty much click a button inside of that UEFI or inside the operating system. It will automatically begin a calibration process for all your fans to figure out essentially what their minimum and maximum RPM values are. And then from there, you can go ahead and dial in all your specific fan curve settings so that you have a well-cooled system that you can also easily control and make sure that you get that balance between noise and cooling performance. Another cool thing that sometimes people aren't aware of that we've also introduced in some of the previous generation boards and is now also going to be available even on a more entry series board here is going to be our temperature input mapping. So historically, when you talk about a motherboard and you're talking about where the temperatures are essentially defining how the fans work, they're generally always responding to the CPU temperature. And so when you're responding to the CPU temperature, one thing that you do want to keep in mind is going to be that your CPU actually may not always be the hottest point within the system. In certain situations, your graphics card may be hotter than the CPU. So it might make more sense that, let's say, if you have your intake fans, let's say, if you imagined you have a chassis right here and you have one fan and you have another fan here as your intakes, that you might not actually want them to respond to the CPU, because if you were checking your CPU temperature under load when you're gaming, it might only be running maybe at, let's say, like 50 degrees. Well, if you check the actual temperature for, let's say, your graphics card, you might find that the actual graphics card is running, let's say, maybe 70 degrees or 75 degrees. And so in that regard, it actually might be better to have the fans respond to the GPU temperature. And that's what we call temperature input mapping, is that you have the ability that you can essentially assign the fans to respond to different temperature input sources. And so that's a really cool feature that even on our more entry-level series of motherboards like we now offer on this entry B550 Prime series board, you're going to have that capability. So while the Prime series of boards aren't necessarily targeted at overclocking, you can still see that they give you a lot of flexibility and control to be able to get a great experience. If you're going to be doing, like I said, just a general minimal build, you're doing some content creation, video editing, photo editing, or you're just building, like I said, maybe a little bit more of a white themed gaming box, you can still have a really nice experience in terms of the type of controls that you have available to you. And keep in mind that as we move up from the boards, we're going to start off right now talking about our Prime series, then we're going to move into TUF Gaming, and then we're going to move into ROG STRIX. That pretty much every feature that I'm talking about will continue to be present on every single one of these boards. As we move from the Prime, they're pretty much only going to get better on TUF Gaming, and then ROG STRIX will just take it to a whole nother level. So you don't ever have to worry about if there's something that's kind of generally noted on one board, as we kind of move our way up, it's going to continue to be present every single time. Okay, so that takes care of our Prime series boards. Let's go ahead and now get ready to move over into TUF Gaming. In terms of TUF Gaming, for those of you that are kind of not familiar with what we offer within the TUF Gaming lineup, is that this is our entry series into a gaming-centric series motherboards. In kind of previous generations, we did used to offer a series of motherboards. It was called the TUF series of motherboards, where we had like a model that was called the Sabertooth. That's an entirely different series. We no longer actively are designing or developing or producing our TUF series of motherboards. TUF Gaming is an entirely new series of motherboards with essentially a different focus in terms of the design and the development of these boards. And our goal here was to, I think, be able to offer boards that, of course, are designed and developed by ASUS, so you get a quality motherboard, but at a more aggressive price point that's gaming-centric. We've had a lot of demand, with ROG now almost being 15 years old, really the de facto standard in high-end motherboard and components, where there's always kind of interest is, can we get a little bit lower price point? And so our goal was to try to be able to offer, I think, a series of components and a series of boards that offered still ASUS level quality, gamer-centric design, and improvements with specialized features and functions, especially on the motherboard sides for audio and networking, and then also accounted for, I think, some of the pain points that sometimes first-generation builders have. First-generation builders sometimes are concerned about general things like just interoperability and compatibility. And so how do we help to improve upon those things? And so on a high level, we've actually definitely done this with the TUF Gaming series of products, where partner products that are developed under what we call our TUF Gaming Alliance actually have to pass special types of mechanical clearance considerations so that we make sure that when these components kind of get paired together, not only do they aesthetically look complementary, like here you can see some nice TUF Gaming Alliance memory from Team Group that looks really good paired with these TUF Gaming boards, but also, let's say, coolers are also going to mechanically fit. You don't have to worry about clearance considerations or issues along those lines. And we can also see that an example right here. Here's another example of something that might be like a TUF Gaming Alliance partner. So this is a nice tower-based heatsink from Scythe. Of course, it's got some nice RGB lighting here, nice kind of accented base fan. But again, that's the cool aspect of what we've tried to do within the TUF Gaming Alliance is offer, I think, especially first-time builders or for those that want to be a little bit more aggressive in terms of their price point, but don't want to compromise on making sure they get a board that's reliable and stable and can provide a good quality experience. And definitely with these B55 series of motherboards, our focus is to ensure that I think you not only get, of course, all those next-gen features that we've talked about, in terms of course, PCI Gen 4, high-speed DDR4 memory support, but also are robust enough to allow you to have access to overclocking. So where those prime entry series of motherboards, I wouldn't target at users that are looking for overclocking performance, although they do still offer that APE functionality we talked about in terms of that ASUS performance enhancement option. These TUF Gaming boards, you can definitely feel more comfortable that if you're looking to target these to pair them with, a Ryzen 7 series processor, or even if you want to go potentially with a Ryzen 9, although I think for the majority of users probably going Ryzen 9, they would probably be considering X570. We've taken more concern to try to really focus at improving the heatsink assembly to really be able to offer very good thermal dissipation performance as well as upgrade the VRM components. So let's go ahead and take a little bit of closer look at these two boards, and we'll talk about some of the areas that we've improved upon the TUF Gaming series. Right here, in terms of the VRM, that's going to be a critical part that I think users are always going to be wondering about. So on the B550 series here, we've upgraded these all to power stages as opposed to discrete MOSFET and drivers. So moving over to discrete power stages, that's going to offer you essentially better electrical efficiency, higher amperage, and overall just better power handling and overall better power delivery, especially for these high core count CPUs. And so you're going to have an 8+2 teamed power stage approach that we're going to have here on the board. You have very, very large heatsink assembly on both of the boards. If actually I take a look right here, you can see here's the mini ITX, excuse me, the micro ATX, and you can also see very, very large heat sinks. You can see the surface area really extends outward there to allow you to have additional airflow, and they are very finned. These also still make the dual contact design that I talked about earlier. So this is still going to essentially make contact with both the power stages as well as the inductors, so the chokes. So in both situations, you're going to have full contact for the actual power delivery. So you're going to get very, very good cooling performance, whether you're going to be running stock or overclocked. You don't have any concerns there. Now, in terms of kind of the overall aesthetic, you can see that the aesthetic is predominantly monochrome, but it definitely has those nice accents of our TUF kind of gaming gold that we have here. And you can see that that's present right here, a little bit on the VRM heatsink, of course, on our TUF Gaming Alliance memory, a little bit down here in terms of the chipset cover, and then just some subtle, digital camo that we have here, though that's going to be in a monochrome kind of light gray. But it's really, really complementary with a lot of our other products. So let's take a look right here. Now, just like the Prime series, all the kind of key specifications are there that you could kind of ask for. So you're going to have support, of course, for dual M.2, USB 3.Gen 2, and the other big upgrade is going to be actually on the networking, which on the networking side, you're going to be having 2.5 gigabit LAN. Now, this is going to be Realtek 2.5 gigabit LAN. It's an exclusive chip that we're going to be utilizing, and it would still also come with our TurboLAN software, so that is a way to be able to prioritize the packets and be able to improve your ping and your latency performance. So that's going to be on here. And on the Wi-Fi model, you'll also have access to Wi-Fi 6 on board. So you get both of those next generation specifications, the 2.5 gigabit LAN Realtek, and then also the Intel Wi-Fi 6 with Bluetooth on board. You can see right here that you've got your M.2 support, so one right over here, and then another M.2, which actually has the heatsink right over here. And then this is the actual key right here, optionally on this board, that if you did want to install an actual Wi-Fi module, let's say you bought the Plus version that doesn't have Wi-Fi, you still actually have access to be able to easily add the M.2 Wi-Fi on the motherboard at a later time. But you can see right here, here's kind of just a good example of how just good together all these TUF Gaming products look, right? Is that you can see that nice aesthetic on something like right here, where you've got our TUF Gaming GTX 1660 Super. And then right here, you've got this nice Tower Sky CPU cooling solution, and you've got the TUF Gaming Alliance memory. And so that's really one of the things that we've tried to advocate for within the TUF Gaming Alliance of products, along with our TUF Gaming motherboards, is that you can have a very kind of clean identity. And for those of you guys that are been checking out our social media channels, you also know that we have an upcoming chassis that I think is going to pair really well with this, and that's going to be our brand new GT301, which is going to be a compact airflow focused chassis, which I think is going to pair really, really well with this series of motherboards. So this is the ATX version right here. You can also see right over here is going to be the isolated audio design, and this is going to be another area that there's an actual upgrade on, where the audio codec on this model compared to what's on the Prime is, you can see it's shielded, and we moved over to the S1200A audio codec with audio grade capacitors and the DTS audio suite. So we'll just take a look here at a reference. And here it's going to be the Mini ITX, and you'll also see that the Mini ITX has the same thing. TUF Gaming audio with the audio grade capacitors, shielded S1200 audio codec. It's all present right there. And in terms, of course, your RGB connectivity, you can see you've got your RGB headers here on the motherboard as well. So those are going to have you covered. You've got a little bit of accent lighting down here on the motherboard. So that'll also get you taken care of that right there. And if we take a look here on the back of the motherboard, this is a feature that again, ASUS was an industry leader in, and we invented it and first introduced on our RG series motherboards, and it's now expanding to more of our boards, but our USB BIOS flashback feature. So this right here is essentially the button for it. There's a corresponding port that you'll plug in a flash drive into. But the coolest thing that essentially you have available to with USB BIOS flashback is when you insert that flash drive, you press this button. Even if you don't have the CPU, you don't have the memory, you don't have the graphics card installed, all you need to do is connect the power supply, but you can essentially update or recover the UEFI BIOS. So that's a pretty cool feature that we have introduced on the boards. That gives you a little bit of closer look there on our TUF Gaming board with the Micro ATX and the ATX based version. Like I said, in total we'll have 4 different TUF Gaming series of motherboards. So let's just quickly take a look at just some of the kind of general spec that we have listed in terms of the TUF Gaming series, and just a couple of quick slides right here. So there's just a quick kind of like highlight of essentially the board lineup, and keep in mind, like I said, that there are a total of 4, where essentially that B550 Plus will offer a Wi-Fi based version. So the easiest way to think about it is that essentially there's really only 2 versions of the board. 2 will have Wi-Fi and 2 will not have Wi-Fi, and they will all essentially have that 2.5 gigabit LAN. So here's just a general kind of a high-level specification detailing of what you can expect on that large ATX-based version of the board. So like I said, the USB 3.Gen 2, including rear Type A and Type C connectivity, the USB BIOS flashback, 2.5 gigabit LAN, along with that Turbo LAN packet priority software. I didn't note it there in the flyover view, but this board does also feature the ProCool power connector. So that's a solid pin power connector, which is essentially just going to allow for improved resistance performance. So essentially, when there's a high amount of current, especially on those high core count CPUs, you can increase the internal temperature of that actual CPU socket connectance. So this helps to reduce the temperature of there, and it also increases the current handling performance. And so that's part of the overall kind of power delivery design, is we're designing the motherboard from the PCB, the power components, the VRM heatsink, even that power connector. That was also something that we innovated originally first on our workstation series of motherboards, and then got introduced into kind of our consumer series of motherboards. And here's just a kind of a little bit of a visual in terms of that ProCool power connector. And you can see that the increase in terms of the amperage reading goes up significantly there. And as I noted, while we don't have a thermographic image there, it is something that we've also noticed that it also has a reduction in terms of the actual temperature performance, especially, like I said, when you're talking about these high core count CPUs, they can pull a lot. These boards do also optionally have the Thunderbolt header that's based on board there. And here's just a quick slide of what the TurboLAN software interface looks like. And pretty much this allows you to do is that if you had a game or if you had an application kind of come up, you can easily go ahead and prioritize that so that you can make sure that you get the best experience possible from that. And this is one that kind of gets often overlooked, but we do spend time on it, and is one of the more little premium points that you get within a TUF Gaming board, even though they're entry kind of series, is going to be that we also offer our DTS audio suite, where essentially you have specialized tailored options that you can go into, where DTS has worked to not only have programmed presets for a very popular series of headphones, including our own headphones and headsets, but you also have customization options for different types of audio experiences. Now you can entirely turn this off or you can turn it on, but I definitely can tell you from trying it out, it definitely can add some positional audio cues that can, I think, add to the immersion level that you have within certain games. So it's definitely worth trying out and seeing, you know, if it adds a little bit more immersion and a little bit more kind of dynamic presence in terms of the sound stage that you have within the audio experience. And as we noted, the boards do, of course, have RGB lighting and RGB connectivity, and that's all fully controllable through the ARMOURY Crate software that we have, which is now kind of becoming the new hub to be able to control and configure all your compatible RGB-based devices. Here's the USB BIOS flashback that I noted when we are kind of flying over the boards. And now here, just lastly, kind of a general flyover in terms of specifications on these series of motherboards. All right, so that wraps up our TUF Gaming series right there. I think for a lot of you, they're going to be probably the most exciting series. And for ROG STRIX for sure, you know, some of the key aspects that you're going to have here, we're going to actually be offering a total of 5 motherboards for the ROG STRIX lineup. So we're going to have the -E, the -F, which we'll have in 2 different versions, both a Wi-Fi and non-Wi-Fi. We'll have the -A, which I'll show you guys actually a picture of the -A because we haven't shown it off yet. And we'll also have the -I. So the -I will, of course, be the Mini ITX. And one of the cool things is I'll also show you is that the -I has already received world record level of performance. We just broke DDR4 overclocking performance. Really impressive is that it actually even breaks the benchmark that we had set with our Crosshair Impact series of motherboards. So very, very, very cool in terms of what we've been able to achieve here. So here you can see that this is the -F, so the B550 ROG STRIX -F Gaming. This is going to be the Wi-Fi based variant, and I think for a lot of you, this is probably going to be your go-to board. It's going to pair perfectly with Ryzen 5, you know, 3600 series, as well as, you know, Ryzen 7 series, or definitely even Ryzen 7. In every single respect, we've upgraded all elements of these boards compared to the TUF Gaming, so and even compared to the previous generation ROG STRIX series boards. So, you know, the really cool aspects that you're going to have right here is even just a much higher end. On the ROG STRIX, they're going to go all the way up to a 14 power stage based solution implementation, and they'll work all the way essentially down. But even the most entry level option, minus the Mini ITX, will essentially be 12 power stages. So that will still be 4 more power stages than what you would have with on the TUF Gaming line. You're going to even go to larger contact VRM heatsink assembly that's going to be present on these guys, and all the way around. I think, you know, you're just going to have, I think, a really, really great foundation in terms of not only the aesthetic, but the feature set. So we're going to take a closer look. We're going to put this one under the secondary shot so we can take a closer look at it. You guys can see what this guy's all about here. You'll also I'll show you in some of the images, but we've kind of, I think, refined the ID design even a little bit further. In the, I think, the previous generation, the B450 series, while it was predominantly monochrome, had a little bit more, I'd say, subtle secondary kind of gray tones. Here, for this generation, we've definitely gone for, I think, even a more of a kind of really clean matte aesthetic that's on these boards, but a little bit of accenting that you have in terms of the electro punk kind of pink accent that we have right there. So let's just go ahead and look at a reference right here. And we'll put this alongside here. It's a Strix series GPU. And you can just see how good those look together. All right. Very, very, very complementary. So looks really, really nice in terms of that aesthetic, you know, design throughout. Even if we throw in and we take a look at kind of, you know, the ROG Strix series power supplies, you can see that you've got the same kind of nice little subtle accenting right there. It all looks very, very, very complementary in terms of the overall kind of look and feel that you have there. That gives you a little bit of a closer look just in terms of the kind of the ID consistency. And it seems small, but, you know, that's definitely a big focus for us, is that we try to make sure that within the design and the development of these products, we're really trying to make sure that the aesthetics is something that we focus on. Unquestionably, ROG has always focused on aesthetics. At the end of the day, of course, it needs to back it up in terms of performance and feature set, and really improving the functional experience for PC DIY enthusiasts. But I definitely appreciate the time and effort that we put into the aesthetic design. In terms of kind of what you have right here, you can see these are very, very large VRM heatsinks. Again, this is a dual contact based design, so it makes contact with the power stages as well as with the inductors. All right, you have two very, very large heat sinks that are going to be present on both of these boards. All right, here's the integrated I/O shield, and that's going to be one of the upgrades that you get when you move over to the ROG STRIX series. As you can see right there, that the I/O shield has been integrated. And this is something that you also want to keep in mind. Sometimes people talk about the pricing, that definitely ROG is a little bit more expensive than what you're going to see sometimes from other companies that are out there. But one of the key aspects of why you pay a little bit more is going to be our focus on innovation. We were the first manufacturer. We designed and developed, invented this integrated I/O shield before any other manufacturer, and now other companies have adopted, essentially mimicking this design approach. But we take the premium that we charge for our product and really put that back in the design and development of our products to be able to afford users, I think, best-in-class designs. The same thing when we talk about here, the isolated audio design, right, where many users are now appreciating higher quality of audio on motherboards. That was also first invented and implemented by ROG on ROG series motherboards, and now, of course, it's come down onto other series boards. Or the USB BIOS flashback technology that I talked about was also first pioneered on ROG series motherboards. So those are all things that we're really proud at, really always being at the forefront of kind of the PC DIY experience. So you get the integrated I/O shield. We can actually finish taking a look there at the connectivity. I'll show you a slide where a little bit easier, but you also have the USB BIOS flashback. You have the Type A connectivity. On the LAN, you move over to 2.5 gigabit Intel LAN. You still, of course, have the Wi-Fi 6 based technology, but we have our Game for 6 Packer Party software, which we'll talk more about. You also have optical output, which is nice for those of you that are going to be running this to like a sound bar, or maybe like a high-end receiver or something along those lines. And here, in terms of the memory, it's going to be a little bit harder to see, but the memory topology is going to be unique right here on these boards. So these boards feature our specialized OptiMem2. And so OptiMem2 is actually the trace layout between the CPU socket and the DRAM, where essentially we have an optimization and a ground layer at how we lay out the traces. And what this allows us to do is significantly reduce the crosstalk between each one of the layers. And this helps to maximize essentially DRAM clocking performance, where because of the reduction in the crosstalk, we can essentially hit higher frequencies, and we can sustain tighter timings, lower timings at comparable voltages. That's why historically ROG boards have had such strong track records at really consistently offering the best experience when it comes to DDR4. And so that's something that it's really, really great to be able to offer on the ROG series, is this OptiMem2 technology that we have here for really, really outstanding DDR4 memory performance. So OptiMem2 is going to be right there. Of course, you've got your dual M.2. Now on the ROG STRIX board, you've got dual M.2 heatsinks. I've gone ahead and removed one of those because I've installed the PCI Express Gen 4 based SSD. Here you have the Supreme Effects audio design. We'll go a little bit more into detail, but this season upgrade, we go over to the S1220 audio codec as opposed to the S1200 audio codec. And right here, there's actually dual op amps. So this is another premium touch point where it differentiates the audio design between what we have on the TUF Gaming series. The dual op amps just allows you to kind of punch up the volume, have a more dynamic sound stage, improve the experience in music, videos, and in games, and just offer, just a better headphone experience. And then, of course, your audio grade capacitors. In terms of the RGB connectivity, you've got your headers on there. You've got a Thunderbolt header. Of course, you got your standard SATA connectivity, and here you have your standard USB 3 front header, just like the other boards. But with the Dash E will offer, of course, Type-C internal connectivity. So let's go ahead and take a little bit of a closer look at some of the slides so we can see some of the cool elements that we've got here a little bit more directly. And I'm also going to show you guys a picture of the new Dash A. Here you guys can see the lineup of the boards that we're going to be offering. So as I noted, across the ROG STRIX lineup, we're going to have 5 different motherboards. We're going to have the Dash E, the Dash F in 2 variants, Wi-Fi and non-Wi-Fi. And then we'll also have the Dash A, which will be the new white and silver aesthetic, and then the Mini ITX, which will be the Dash I series. So this is the brand new B550 Dash A Gaming. It won't have Wi-Fi, but pretty much every other key feature that I've talked about, including the improved power stages, larger heat sinks, all the other design points that I've talked about are going to be present on this board. I think it's going to be a fantastic choice. It looks outstanding, and it's just going to really go really well with, I think, the wide range of ROG White series accessories that we have, whether it's our White Strix series graphics cards, our new Strix LC White coolers that we're going to have, as well as the GT301 chassis, as well as our ROG Strix Helios. We've just are continuing to put a lot of focus into offering you a great ecosystem of complementary kind of white and silver based aesthetics when it comes to supporting products to complement, you know, our White series of motherboards now under the ROG lineup. So I think really cool looking board that we have right here with the Dash A SKU. And you can see alongside to them, doesn't matter whether you want to go with kind of the traditional clean black monochrome or you want to go with the new silver and white aesthetic that we're going to have on the Dash A. They're both going to look fantastic. Very cool looking boards. So we've talked about the power delivery design. We've talked about, of course, the cooling design implementation, the networking, and the audio-based functionality. And here, I think we want to give a little bit of comparison where I talked about that there's definitely a little bit of a distinctive difference that you can see between the previous generation, the B450-F, where I thought that was already a great looking board, but you can see that we went a little bit more subtle on the Cybertex finish. So it's a little bit less noticeable, and we matted out more the PCB board. Again, that's a little bit more of an expensive process to actually go through and mat the PCB board, but it adds just kind of an additional level of kind of I think clean aesthetic that you have, and that nice electro punk accent, I think it looks really nice on the Dash F SKU. So here you can see also a little bit of a comparison in terms of kind of the base specifications where we've upgraded, like I said, pretty much all the aspects from the thermal solution to the power delivery design, M.2 heat sinks, the wireless implementation, as I said, on the Wi-Fi based version, whether you having the Wi-Fi 6, then you have the 2.5 gigabit Intel LAN, as opposed to on the TUF Gaming where we have the Realtek 2.5 gigabit LAN, and then from there, of course, the ProCool power connector, the OptiMem2, and then of course the upgraded Supreme Effects implementation with the S21220 dual operational amplifiers and Sonic Studio 3, as well as the ASUS AI noise canceling. Although the ASUS noise canceling technology is present also on TUF Gaming series motherboards as well, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. So here with the Dash F, you can see a little bit of a high flyover of kind of all kind of key specification layout. There's some cool things that we haven't touched on, and I can kind of show them a little bit more clearly. Let me see if I come back here to the board. One of them people wonder about is that, you know, we don't have debug LED on the Dash F. We only offer the full debug LED readout on the Dash E board, but I can go ahead and show you right here that on many of the boards, right here, it's a little bit hard to see, but there's actually 4 LEDs, and these 4 LEDs are what we refer to as our debug LED technology. And so there's essentially a sequencing pattern, one for the CPU, one for the DRAM, one for the graphics card, and one for the primary boot device. And so as the board's going through its post routine, those LEDs will light up and illuminate and let you know if you've got an issue with one of those corresponding devices to help you troubleshoot the actual post process. So that's just another kind of innovation that we've had that we introduced on our motherboards as well. So I don't have the Mini ITX here on hand, sadly, guys, but I can definitely show you some of the cool aspects of what we got here with the Mini ITX board. So here, taking a closer look at the board, you can see that it's definitely packed in terms of pretty much offering you an outstanding experience. So some of the cool things that we've done right here with the Mini ITX board is going to be that it has an integrative active kind of cooling solution that's there to help to assist with the VRM, just because you have, of course, a more compact-based design. At the same time, one of the real key hallmarks within our Mini ITX solution is that we have a specialized kind of riser card that we have on board that handles our M.2 expansion support, as well as our Supreme Effects audio design. And in a Mini ITX, not only is that an intelligent use of space, but it also allows us to have even a higher level of performance because we're fully isolating those components as opposed to other vendors where they're actually putting those items directly onto the board. And so here, again, that's that kind of next level of kind of innovation and design focus that ROG brings to the table within something like our Dash I series, which have really consistently, generation after generation, been a benchmark for those of you that are looking for a high performance, small form factor gaming board. And you can definitely see that very, very little compromise in terms of what you would really want here, where you've got that high quality S21200, S21220 audio codec. You've got USB Type-C front panel connection. You, of course, got that active VRM airflow with a high quality power delivery solution based on board. This is 8 teamed power stages that are on here, so very, very good quality. OptiMem 2 is also going to be on this board. So really kind of all those key technologies that you could be asking for are also going to be present on the Mini ITX board. And here's a kind of a little exploded version where you can see that active airflow design that we have that's present in terms of adding in conjunction to the actual physical VRM heatsink that we have on the motherboard. Now, in terms of the fan layout, of course, the Strix series of boards are always going to have extensive fan connectivity and control. We talked about already essentially that on these boards, we have our Fan Expert 4 technology. So you've got multiple headers for your CPU fans, for your chassis fans, for AIO coolers and water pumps. And also you have that temperature input mapping technology, and you also, of course, have granularity and control to be able to get everything situated in terms of either the UEFI BIOS or within the operating system. The choice is entirely up to you. The Wi-Fi 6, of course, in that Intel Gigabit LAN. Now, here's one of the really cool things that we've done for this generation. And so we've now had Game First for multiple generations, but one of the really cool things with Game First 6 is an entirely new overhaul to the software package. It's been rewritten from the ground up. It's extremely lightweight, so it's very, very minimal in terms of any type of CPU resources. And it's actually connected on the back end to a dynamic real-time database. And so essentially the way that it works is that the moment that you launch, let's say, a game, so let's say you were loading up Apex Legends, or let's say you were going into, Sniper 4, or you were going into Fortnite, you're going into any type of online connected game experience, the actual services as well as the EXE are going to be automatically detected by Game First. And Game First will actually automatically prioritize that at the forefront of your networking stack within the operating system. So it's immediately going to be optimized to essentially have the best ping performance and latency. The cool thing about this too is that you can go directly within the application and you can directly actually see all the different actually ping and latency services. There's full real-time graphs that we track actually information not only in relation to networking, but even things like your temperature, your memory utilization. It's all in one clean, easy to understand user interface. We also even manage power profiles. So the moment that actually the game launches, we can switch into high performance power profile, which with AMD's chipset drivers and CPU architecture optimization, they actually sometimes have different power profiles that might be recommended, and we can automatically make an adjustment to that. And the cool thing is that in the back end, Game First, since it's actively working with a real-time cloud-centric based database, is that as new game engines come out or new game services come out, we can automatically update those in the back end so that they're continually essentially always recognized. And now, if you want, you of course have the full granularity and control to prioritize any service that you're looking for. But the cool aspect about this is essentially once it's installed, you're good to go. It essentially will automatically detect the moment that you launch that game or you launch those game services. The other cool thing is that for this generation, we also have a new type of small minimal widget module that you can run on your desktop that gives you a one-touch option to be able to prioritize things like downloading. So if you've got big patches or game updates, you can just click a button and it will automatically prioritize downloading optimization as kind of the focus. Another option will be to prioritize anything that's immediately in the foreground. So let's say you've got the Netflix app running, you can go ahead and have that immediately take prioritization, but then the moment that you jump into a game, that will take prioritization. The moment that you jump into your web browser, that would take prioritization. So whatever you have actively running in the foreground will automatically take that. If you're somebody that's streaming or uploading, you can also switch that widget into an upload optimization focus. And so it'll retweak a couple of things and ensure that you get a better experience when it comes to uploading files. So this is the really cool part of that Game First technology. It's quite extensive and it's quite comprehensive in terms of that improvement that you can have in terms of a network-centric experience. And it works both on the hardline connection as well as on the wireless connection. So it doesn't matter whether you're using that Intel Gigabit connection or you're using that Intel Wi-Fi based connection, both of them will provide a benefit, both of them will receive a benefit from the Game First 6 software. So that covers our Game First 6. Here is a Supreme Effects, and as I noted, right, you get that shielded audio codec, the S21220A, dual operational amplifiers, and audio-grade capacitors. And the other cool thing too is that we have our full Sonic Studio software suite. And so with the Sonic Studio software suite, you have a lot of control and granularity to be able to go ahead and customize things like volume, EQ, waveforms. You can do virtual surround up mixing. And the other really cool part is that you can assign it to specific applications. So if you want one profile for, let's say, your Spotify desktop client, as opposed to, let's say, your web browser, as opposed to, let's say, you jumping into, Battlefield, you can have different audio presets set for every single application. So the moment that essentially you jump into those applications, it will automatically switch to be able to provide that tailored audio experience per each one of those programs. And so that's something that's really, really cool. Now, new for this generation on all the ROG Strix series boards is also going to be our AI noise canceling technology. And so we actually first introduced this on a hardware level with some of our products. And so now we're introducing it on a software level with these boards. And so I've been actually quite impressed, and you'll actually can head over to some of our websites where you'll actually see the ability that you can go ahead and preview the before and after based essentially noise canceling effect, but it works quite well in terms of not only maintaining good tonality and clarity with your voice, but really removing a lot of that ambient noise that you might have from, let's say, your keyboard, or from, let's say, the rustling of, different things on your desk, or ambient kind of general noise, or the clicking of your mouse, any one of those kind of items. And the cool thing is that it can work with different types of audio interfaces. So it doesn't matter whether you're using, of course, whatever you might be using in terms of your device, you can essentially apply that to it. So it's very, very flexible in terms of working with, 3.5 analog-based devices, with Bluetooth-based devices, with USB-based devices. It can work on any single one of those. And from a performance standpoint too, even though we've seen that there's now some GPUs, like NVIDIA has been offering the RTX, which has been very impressive in terms of its noise canceling performance, it's very, very minimal in terms of CPU resource utilization, and also actually having any effect on your gameplay performance. So you can essentially enable this and still be able to offer a very, very high level of gaming performance. And so here's just a little bit of an example in terms of some of the kind of the performance numbers that we've been able to measure internally when we have essentially that AI noise canceling technology turned on, and then again when it's disabled, and then also compared to RTX-based voice. So here's just a general kind of flyover of the different boards that we'll have across the entirety of the ROG Strix lineup. And last but not least, of course, we've got ARMOURY Crate. And so with ARMOURY Crate, that's our new version of our software. It's been continuously updated, I'd say, within the last about, really, I think about 3 to 6 months, we've consistently really been updating it to be able to offer, I think, not only stable operation, but functional operation, and really kind of solidifying the experience of not only accessing key aspects about the way the motherboard works, but the increasing kind of ecosystem of ASUS ROG hardware. So coolers, peripherals, they can all be a kind of one-stop shop where you can go into the ASUS ARMOURY Crate software, make your adjustments, have monitoring values, and have everything work out. So really, really nice overall, I think, experience that you have available to you. And keep in mind that ARMOURY Crate now has kind of become comprehensive for not only our ROG series of motherboards, but as I noted earlier, also for the TUF Gaming series. Now, one last item here will kind of show you that some of you might not be familiar with that we recently, it's still actually kind of a beta form, but it is available right now on the Windows Store, is our Aura Creator software. So Aura Creator is a more extensive essentially option for those of you that especially have kind of a comprehensive RGB lighting setup within your system, where you can go in and, very similar to kind of a non-linear editor that you would have, let's say, for video editing, you can sequence out all your components and set up kind of more dynamic and, I think, more kind of impressive kind of setups in terms of how you have your actual RGB lighting effects work. Right now within ARMOURY Crate, you have your general kind of control at having different effects and different colors that are available to you. But if you're looking for kind of advanced sequencing control effects to kind of layer from one device to another, the order, the speed, and those different kind of aspects, that's something that we're now formally including within our Aura Creator. And so definitely we have big plans to continue to refine and improve upon the functionality both for ARMOURY Crate as well as Aura Creator. And last but not least is going to be just another little piece of supplemental software. A lot of times it doesn't necessarily get covered, but another cool kind of thing that you get when you get the RG series boards is our RAM Cache 3 software. So this can actually allow you to utilize essentially unutilized memory that you have in your system. So if you're essentially using, 32 gigs worth of memory, you might really only be using like 8 to 12 gigs. And so here you can take some of that additional memory, assign it to work in conjunction with your storage drives, helps to maximize their performance and overall lifespan. So again, this is just a value add piece of software. It comes free, where normally if you were to purchase some form of kind of RAM cache software, There's varying costs, but it can be anywhere from like as maybe 25 to as much as kind of $80, depending on the RAM cache software that you purchase. And again, here, this just comes with the motherboard in itself. There's also some cool pieces of information that are available to you in here, such as being able to actually do some quick basic memory tests if you're looking to be able to test your memory, as well as actually have some more access to information about the actual memory modules that you have available to you directly within the OS environment. You can definitely download third-party utilities to access that information, but it's nice that you essentially have that ability right off the bat with the software that we're supplying. Okay, so that I think overall gives us a big roundup of pretty much the vast majority of the new boards that we're going to be offering. So we've covered the boards from our Prime series. So like I said, 4 different boards there. We've got 4 different boards for the TUF Gaming line, and 5 different boards for the ROG STRIX series of motherboards. And when you're kind of going through all of this as well, you might be wondering, well, what might be things to keep in mind when it comes to actually picking a different motherboard, and what is going to be kind of the easiest route to go about this. And so one really great option that we have is you head over to edgeup.asus.com. There you can actually find that we have actually full guides to give you kind of insight into everything. So we can actually show you that, guys, here. So you can head over to edgeup.asus.com, and there we've got our build guides as well as a full B550 motherboard kind of guide that will go through every single one of the models and gives you kind of clarity and understanding, again, many of the features and functions and specifications that we've talked about, right? So as we kind of round this up, I wanted to kind of lastly touch on a few things. Again, remember that for you guys, we are going to be giving one of the giveaways here in a little bit. So that's going to be for a B550-E gaming motherboard, along with an optional pack of our ElectroPunk peripherals. So in a little bit, we're going to be actually a question in a moment. So make sure you guys were paying attention, hopefully earlier when I talked about one of the really cool performance features that we had on our motherboards. So in addition to that, also make sure to head over to our ASUS EdgeUp PC DIY Facebook group, where we're going to actually be following up in a couple of days, and we'll be doing another giveaway there. So all the way around, you've got some cool opportunities to be able to pick up some stuff when it comes to the latest generation of B550 series motherboard hardware from ASUS, as well as some of our cool peripherals. Let's go ahead and actually show you something that I think we're pretty happy about. And that's going to actually be, we talked about on the Mini ITX side, we had some pretty impressive numbers that we showed off, and we talked again about the Optimum memory design. And so this is kind of one of the things that we're really happy to be able to announce in terms of performance. So you can see here over 6 gigahertz. So it's the highest DDR4 frequency achieved right now, of course, on B550, just launched, but I think very impressive. And again, shows you kind of the performance capabilities on the highest end of the spectrum in terms of what's possible. That was a Ryzen 5 3600 series base processor, and of course some high-speed DDR4 based memory, but a really, really impressive level of performance that's been able to be shown on our Mini ITX based board. But altogether, again, I think for the realistic users that are out there that are going to be targeting DDR4 based overclocks, you can feel comfortable and confident that if you're talking about 3600 megahertz, 3700 megahertz, or you're talking about 4000, you're going to be able to run those frequencies on these boards comfortably and confidently, regardless of the different memory manufacturers that are out there, and whether that's going to be, taking advantage of manual tuning options, where you can go ahead and manually define all your timings and your values directly within the UEFI, or also, of course, taking advantage of our DOCP profiling option, which will, of course, attempt to read those XMP profiles and apply them directly to the motherboard, and then allow you to go ahead and just get back up and running without really having to go through and manually kind of tweak and tune all those different parameters. So all the way around, I think that wraps up most of what we wanted to be able to touch on. All the way around, if we want to talk about availability, pretty much these boards are now pretty much actively available, so you can head over to your favorite e-tailers, whether you're talking about Amazon, whether you're talking about Newegg. You can see the boards available online. Some of the boards are still going to be coming out, such as the Mini ITX, as well as the Dash A and the TUF Gaming Wi-Fi. I would expect the Dash A as well as the TUF Gaming Wi-Fi sometime around next month, maybe the middle of the month timeframe. But of course, if you're following us in our PC DIY Facebook group, as well as our social media channels, as these boards become available, we'll make sure to be letting you know. The other thing is that for many of you that are interested in kind of what are going to be the releases for, let's say, important UEFIs where we're optimizing and maximizing, performance, interoperability, stability, and overclocking, I strongly recommend make sure to check out our PCDIY Facebook group. I actually release updates on a weekly basis about any UEFIs that we release for our motherboards. We also are going to be doing weekly streams within the community, as well as additional kind of performance tuning insights to be able to allow you to go ahead and get the best experience possible from your B550 series motherboard, as well as B450 series motherboards or X570 series motherboards. That's one of the things that we're really committed to, is hopefully giving you guys the information that you need to be able to make sure that you've got a great PC DIY experience. A last note is going to be that while they're not yet available, the next generation of Ryzen Series Pro processors that are going to be coming out are going to be offering even higher levels of DDR4 memory performance. And so we're really happy to be actual note that that while we've noted already on very impressive DDR4 overclocking capabilities and frequency support for our boards, as evidenced by, of course, the world record performance that we have on our Dash I base model, you're actually seeing even higher DDR4, I'd say realistic operating frequencies with those next gen based processors. So that's something to keep in mind, and you'll find out more information on the respective product pages, which will help to detail the memory frequencies that we have gone ahead and validated for those motherboards. As always, if you want to find out more information on the specific modules or those rated frequencies, you can download the QVL information by heading over to support.asus.com, putting in the model number, and once you head over to that webpage, you can download the QVL and check out all that information. So that wraps up our live stream, guys. Thank you guys so much for checking it out. Hopefully you guys got some good information regarding our brand new line of ASUS B550 series motherboards. If you have any questions, comments, or feedback, make sure to go ahead and drop them down in the comment section down below, and we'll do our best to go ahead and follow up with you guys. You guys can also hit us up on all our social media channels, from everything ranging from, of course, from Facebook to Instagram to Twitter, as well as our PC DIY Facebook group. And as I've noted before, if you guys have more questions about our wide range of products, make sure to also check out our EdgeUp website at edgeup.asus.com. So with that, take care, take it easy, enjoy the rest of your day, and stay safe and stay healthy.